Well, I am not 100% sure if we are live. Now we are. All right. So, welcome to today's BioMentorHub webinar. I am very pleased to welcome everybody also from our team from the BioMentorHub. And I am also very happy that I can welcome our speakers today. We have three amazing speakers. I will get in touch with them a little bit later. Firstly, I want to give all of you some short introduction. So I already see that we have some participants on YouTube. Feel free to just send us some question during our talk. I will definitely have an eye on the questions there. And with them, I am ready to start with some short introductions for our two companies and our three speakers. So today, as you can see also from the names, we have Alex Voda and Alex Bacita from the cat health company with us. Both are focusing with their company on extending the lifespan and improvising the health of cats through data science within the veterinary care sector. So I think it's a very interesting subject there already because it has something to do with our daily life, with our beloved pets, and I am really happy to learn a little bit more about that soon. And we also have Vlad Vitoc with us. He is the founder and CEO of MAIA Biotechnology. And MAIA Technology is actually working with new treatments for lung and colon cancer. So welcome to you all. I would maybe just start with Vlad to give us a short introduction into his company from himself.
Thank you, Anna. Good to be here. Good to see everybody here online. It's a short introduction about MAIA Biotech and myself. MAIA is a company that I started 6 years ago. It's an oncology company developing treatments for cancer, capitalizing on new mechanisms of action, telomere targeting, and immunogenicity, stimulating the immune system to respond to cancer. It's a Chicago-based company formed as a Delaware company, as most are in the United States, operating for longer than 6 years now and listed on New York Stock Exchange since 2022 under the ticker symbol MAIA, M-A-I-A. We have a program in play of telomere targeting agents, of which the lead molecule is called THIO, T-H-I-O. And THIO is now beginning pivotal clinical trials for commercial approval in non-small cell lung cancer. We have now plans in place to start trials in colorectal, liver, and small cell lung cancer in the near future. And a few words about myself. So I'm a physician by my first training. I went to the University of Medicine and Pharmacy in Cluj, Romania. And then I got my MBA in the United States. And my entire career I spent in pharma and biotech, in oncology, about 50-50 commercial and medical. About 20 years of tracking this way until 2018 when I started MAIA Biotech. So with this introduction, I will pass the baton over to Alex.
Yes, thank you for the short introduction. So one of the Alexes can start. I don't know how you want to settle that today, but I think you will
Sure. Be good. I'll give a 2-minute intro to the company and to myself, and also we'll hand out the baton to my co-founder, Alex Bacita. We are the cat health company. Pretty hard to describe it shorter than that. We're a startup working with collaborators across the world, laboratories and CDMOs, and building up infrastructure to figure out drugs that could prolong the lifespan of the cats, and having a focus on specific diseases like chronic kidney disorders and sarcopenia. Me and Alex have met more than a decade ago at the University of Manchester, studying biomedical sciences. We've worked on quite a few projects, both in academia and industry, we wanted to start this company for a while, as we realized that drug development is really an awesome job to have, an awesome space to develop startup teams around. And the thing that got us most interested in the space was the fact that you can judge the lifespans of animals and the phenotypes of animals way faster than you can those in humans, because they just live a shorter lifespan on average, and they respond and develop diseases on a way different time scale than humans do. And that means that we get to probably see the outcomes of our work way faster. And so to try to go beyond just 9 lives, me and Alex have started a company, and I'll let him talk a bit more about himself and about our mission. So yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks very much, BioMentorHub, for organizing and for having us invited and diving into our mission. Like Alex has covered already, we've been partnering up on quite a few projects. So we've met in our first year at the University of Manchester in our undergraduate degree, and we got involved into quite a few things there that we can maybe dive in deeper and understand how those can impact the progress that we have as entrepreneurs now. But essentially everything was kind of non-profit, and we were doing it alongside full-time jobs, and that was really cool. But then at some point we decided that we have the minds and we have the ideas to make this happen, and we said, look, let's just go for this. The thing that worked very well for us, and that I'm sure Vlad can confirm on the importance of, is choosing the right team. So the two of us as co-founders, we had essential complementary skills. And then when we progressed with enrolling more people, that was a key factor. So that we make sure to choose the right team. So that's it. Everyone's involved and part of the mission.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving us a brief introduction about yourself and about the companies that you are founded and are working in now. I already think it's a quite interesting start to think about how to build a company. So the first question that comes to my mind is always, were you sure that you wanted to have a startup from a very young age? When did you decide to have a startup?
So when I decided, so I wanted to have a startup company right from the get-go. It's out of medical school. It was I had two inspiration characters in my life. One was my mother, who was an oncologist and is now retired, but she was a breast cancer oncologist in Cluj at the Institute of Oncology. She was, from a clinical standpoint, my first model. But the entrepreneurial model came from my father, who was an architect, and he's now retired as well. And he had, after 1989, he had to start his own company, like it or not, because the Institutes of Architecture in the country were all dismantled, and all the architects went immediately into private business, whether they liked it or not, or know it or not. So he became an entrepreneur by circumstance that way, and but became very successful over time, learning everything on his own from scratch. So his determination in tackling a new entrepreneurial adventure, in setting up his practice, was also an inspiration for me. So when I came to the States for my MBA, I came with the mind that I'm going to set up my own company after the MBA. But it didn't turn out that way. It is. It's easier said than done when you need to fund it. That's the most important thing. And so I had to go back to biotech and pharma, and I continued to build my background and my skills and my circle of friends that eventually became also investors in the company over time. So so the inspiration was early, but the execution was not so early. It was a bit later.
It's very interesting to hear, because I also saw that you worked for a lot of different companies, also different sizes of companies. So I think you also had very interesting new stuff that was coming to you, and also that probably helped you set up your own startup. So maybe from Alex and Alex, how about you? How was the starting idea, and how did you develop that you wanted to have a startup on your own?
Well, I can't speak for Alex in terms of like when did both of us make up our minds that we wanted to like have a startup in general. I think we both have had kind of like the same moment for figuring out that we want to start this startup. But I mean, like Vlad says, it's really difficult not only to come up with an idea and a pretty good MVP or just a very good plan overall, but also to have the network of investors and people that you can communicate the plan to that would actually help you take it to the next step. So I think to some degree we all get flustered and excited about startups that we've heard, whether we've heard about them, some of them I was really excited about from as early as high school. Some of them I've been excited about basically in just a couple of years before we started on the cat health company. But it is definitely a thing where it's not really a binary thing. Like you've made up your mind that you want to, work long hours and have no specific schedule as if, you were just an employee. Work really hard to garner, attention um, to your deck, to your team, and so on. I think you always sort of like ponder the pros and cons of it, and at some point you just have a trigger of wow, there's just I just can't not do this. I really need to have this project, this company started. So I'll hand it to Alex. I'm really curious.
Yeah, no, that was straight on point, and I think that like now looking back, there are a couple of clues that yeah, show us we were heading in this direction. Like when we were students, we founded a journal together, a peer-reviewed journal of the university, and we gathered like a team of 15 people, and we had roles assigned and responsibilities, and we're checking on everyone, and we had a few issues published, and the journal was registered. It had an ISSN number and everything. And then I think later on we were both full-time committed to other places, but we were like, oh, okay, maybe like let's explore some kind of scientific animation type of side hustle, if you want. And then we gave that a go for a bit, and it was like really testing the ground for how we would form a leadership team together, and how stuff would go. And that kind of like gives you a few insights along the ways where maybe the stakes aren't as high, that you know what approach to have, and you can see if you have success or not, no matter to which scale or what the impact of that mission is. If it's well organized and if you're happy with how it goes, then that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that you also tried out a little bit on different areas, all probably very scientific related, but in the end that you found your way together also with your startup. So maybe just keep a little bit with the starting point of your startups or your companies. Can you remember how the first month of working in your own startup was like? Or are you saying you can't really say that this was the first month because it kind of spread it over time, that you're working a little bit and then a little bit more? So yeah, maybe some insights on that would be great.
Should we just like follow the same structure and let Vlad go first? And yeah,
just how you want. You don't need to.
Okay, so the first month for me was actually pretty straightforward. I started a company with a licensing of tile from University of Texas. So the licensing, at the time I started the company, the licensing process was far along but not complete. So a lot of my first month mission was to complete the licensing, and then also to line up the seed investors, form the team as well. So I formed a starting team of 3 to help the company take off, and also lined up the initial investors. We ended up a friend joined us as initial investors and the seed round ended up being about 3.5 million, but it was not all in one go. It required some further discussion and negotiation. So all the seed round was raised over a span of about 6 months to 9 months or so. So that's how my first month went.
Yeah, kind of similar for us, I would say. We didn't start with like the most exciting work ever, or like straight to the lab or whatever. We spent a lot of time doing bureaucracies and everyday office work, and also just riling up investors. And it also took quite a while for us as well. Um, you know, if you pitch something for like 3 years and you can't fundraise, at some point, you realize you have maybe you're just not good at pitching it, or maybe you have to switch the idea. Maybe the idea is bad, or maybe the team is just not there, the plan is just not there, or maybe you don't have the macro conditions, right? Like it's just not a friendly enough investing macro for your riskiest idea, right? But I think the sort of thing that was upsetting me, at least, was that I saw a couple of other startups fundraise in about like 2 weeks, like closing a pre-seed round on something that I felt, was less worthy than what we were working on. And they fundraised so fast, and for us, it took quite a bit more. And it was also filled with a lot of bureaucracy that I kind of wish we could have externalized somehow. Yeah, what did you think about the first month or so, Alex?
Yeah, that's pretty relative. So yeah, I think although we had quite a lot of groundwork to do for our foundation, to me the first month was when we had the team into a rented office together. When everyone was in the space working together, when we were all showing up at work, and we were looking around, and we decided that I can't believe how lucky we are that this is our office and that we get to work for ourselves. And yeah, okay, it's hard and we have unknowns and a lot of stuff to figure out, but like we were really grateful to be in that place. And yeah, that first month feeling is something I try to take with me as we progress.
It's nice to hear that it's kind of similar for both of your companies. I want to hang to a little bit of something that Alex said, that you also saw different startups that were involving next to you. So maybe on a little bit of a broader note, what do you think is actually setting your company aside from other companies that are maybe also a startup, but maybe also already a very well developed company in the same field as yours?
Well, I think it's definitely the team and the overall plan. So obviously, as a startup, as a pre-seed or seed stage, sometimes even Series A startup, you don't have a product, you don't have revenue. Maybe you have a patent, maybe you have 2, 3. Who's to say how valuable those patents are and how defensible they are? Sometimes even after you get a grant, a patent granted, it's not really defensible in court and so on. So it's really hard to figure out whether the startup's going to work at all. I think that's probably why, as you go towards Series A, Series B, Series C, and ultimately towards IPO, people stop assuming that they're putting their money in a startup that's going to die. And most of the time when you invest in a pre-seed startup, you assume the startup's going to die. 9 out of 10 do. So I guess it's a bit of leap of faith of matching the investment thesis. So obviously, Vlad wouldn't pitch tech investors or sort of investors in agriculture or other types of biotech. We'd always go for the investors that have the best sort of fit for the subfields that we're interested in. And as long as you have the right team and you're actually seeking the relevant investors too, I think you can get a pre-seed, even if it sounds difficult. Maybe you're fundraising in the middle of nowhere. Maybe you're not in San Francisco or Chicago or New York or London or whatever. But as long as you have at least some of those, you stand a better chance.
Is there anything else about that topic? Otherwise, we can also already jump a little bit into the funding that was mentioned now multiple times. I mean, the funding is probably, especially for a company that is just developing, the most secure thing that you need to start your startup. So are there any tips aside from going to investors that are maybe already very good in your field that you would recommend for people that want to start their own company?
So I'd say that when you set up the company first and you're making the first pitches, in fact, most of the investment is in you, not in the company. So it is, you have to recognize that. It's better to recognize it early that no matter what product you have at that point in the game, the decision in the investor's mind is, am I going to invest in this person or not? And with that in mind, then you go to close allies, close friends. I would recommend friends and family as the first approach. Also to be, of course, you need to have a very good plan and investment thesis and all that. So show them that this is a worthwhile endeavor. It's going to change. It's going to bring about some extraordinary mission or vision. And but at the end of the day, they invest in you, not in the company. The investors in the company come about later. So they come about beyond Series A and B and in the public markets, that's when the importance of the company becomes much greater.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. Or maybe, is there anything that you learned, especially beforehand in the companies that you worked in, some experience that you thought after building your startup were very valuable, that you took especially for the pitchers and just to set up everything?
Yes, I absolutely think so. It is to know when you see something valuable, like we discovered Tayo. We didn't discover Tayo. Tayo was already discovered. We just saw it and recognized it as a drug with extraordinary potential when no one else did. To know this, to see this potential, you need to learn on how to identify it. And so my previous experience at other pharmaceutical and biotech company in similar circumstances, not startups from scratch, but startup of business units, and a lot of business development work, looking at new compounds at other startup companies. All of this became very important in helping me understand what I see. And it's not so easy to find these days a compound that is clinic ready, and also has a promise of working in so many different tumor types. Most of the compounds that these days would be lucky to work in one or two, but when you see something like this, and also it's not without its own issues. So there's a reason why other bigger pharmaceutical companies have not picked it up so early, right? So it's but the most important reason is, in fact, just the sheer amount of projects that are out there in preclinical setting at the universities. So there's only a limited number of people in big pharma and in biotech companies that can look at this compound, study them, understand them, and then make some decisions which to pick up or not. So that's a very important issue, that there's a lot of traffic, but also, if you as soon as I saw Tayo, I thought this is a compound that will have a tremendous, because this has applicability in different tumor types, and the science around it is brand new. So yeah,
I really like that, and I think it really aligns with what Alex was saying earlier in like having the right team in order to identify these trajectories. But then it's also super important to communicate them. So the investors you're going to be in contact early on are like most likely not going to be as scientific as you. Maybe they're more business oriented. So then you kind of have to present that idea from a different perspective. So for you could just like go on about the science all day and like be super excited about how that works, but then you need to kind of have an understanding of the broader implications of that idea. And yeah, for us, first it was the team, and then there were a couple of others of other areas that we've identified that kind of make us stand out. There were no companies pursuing similar therapeutics in cats. We have quite a few working on dogs, but we haven't had any competition in cats. Going about things the same way we do, and it's also like really essential to keep an eye on how things are progressing. For example, if we're looking at modalities, right, in the 1980s, you only had like pills and injectables, so that was the only thing you could leverage. But then you had antibodies come along in the 1990s, and then you had stuff like viruses and oligos, and mRNA and CRISPR and zinc fingers and like everything that's happening with the bioinformatics now. So you have to kind of be aware of how things are progressing around you and try to identify your own trajectory that makes you unique and valuable.
Yes, for sure. I would also agree that it's important also to note the value of what you are working on. It's always probably the first step to recognize that you're working on something great, to put more work in. So we are already reaching some tips for new entrepreneurs. So for me, it would be interesting to know if there are some big challenges that you needed to survive, especially in the case of like a life science startup that you set it up, because I think it's most of the time very different to different kind of startups. Maybe you have some insights on that.
So, well, it has the value proposition is an evolving thing. It starts out with in one place, and then it goes from there. So you need to evolve the value proposition along the way. But I think the most important things, there are two things. One is the execution of the plan, and then the second is the continuous financing, which has to be in sync with financial discipline, because it's without financial discipline, you're not going to, not any amount of financing will never be sufficient. So it's I think these are the most important things, to make sure that you execute on point, and also raise the money commensurate with the need company. But there are more aspects about raising the money. There are good times and there are not good times to raise money. So the market environment is not a trivial matter. It's a very important matter. So some people will give you advice that when you have money that you can raise, just do it, raise it, because bad times can come and then you may not be able to raise anything. So I think those are some of the most important aspects. But the focus of an entrepreneur CEO is on multiple fronts. Certainly building the team, certainly developing the compound. But I find myself in a position where I spend 70-80% of my time actually raising funds for the company. So communicating the value proposition to investors that continue, and also to new investors that are considering to come in.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel like some things are in your control and some of them aren't. In terms of, for example, like holding continuous financing for the company and keeping it alive. You know, maybe the science is going amazingly well, and then the market crashes, and then now maybe VC spillover isn't that high, so you can't raise around, or maybe you can't raise at the valuation that you think is fair. And there's situations where your advisors will tell like, get as much money as you can right now. Like, say you can oversubscribe around, just do it, and hold some money under the pillow for a worse off season or whatever. And then there's entrepreneurs who had the complete opposite experience. So I was reading, for example, Celine Halio's blog from Loyal for Dogs. Celine's brought an IGF-1 inhibitor that prolongs the lifespan of Great Danes and other, like large breed dogs. And they've got, the efficacy concurrence from FDA for that compound. So they're doing very well. But I was reading her blog and figured that one of the things that she was very, very upset about was that she raised $11 million for her pre-seed round. And particularly, the reason why she was upset was that she touched all of the milestones for the next round with just 500K. So basically, right then and there, you're like, wait, I could have raised at a higher valuation. I could have given less away from the company, and some things just aren't in your control. So you also have to like sort of like gain this self-control and not spill over the frustrations that you have with some of the things that you can't control about a company, because then it affects the team as well, it affects everyone else. So it feels like you have to think about all of the things that you can control and all of the things that you can't control and label them as such.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And with any approach to sales, it's important to keep in mind that it's a numbers game, and you do have to be quite persistent until you reach the right investors. Just because someone makes you an offer, it doesn't mean that it's the right path for you to pursue. So you have to make sure that the investors that you choose to have a partnership with are also the right kind for yourself also, and you're not just taking the money because you need the money to keep your company alive. And again, having an overview of what's happening in the market is good. So like last year, Carta published a few valuable insights for the founder ownership at different funding stages. So we see that the seed stage, you have around 67% of equity on average for owners. And then at Series A, you have 53, and at Series B, it drops to 43. So you can deviate a little bit from these numbers, but yeah, you just be mindful of what the trends are, and also maybe be mindful of overcoming some VC biases. Sometimes if you're super innovative, it can kind of be an uphill battle if you're selling something that's super new, and you will get no's because people aren't used to that way of thinking about a particular area of life. So do gather feedback, and obviously don't be delusional, but yeah, just remember that it can feel like an uphill battle, and you do need to be persistent.
Sure, this was a very interesting insight on that. I also think it's probably very hard to juggle all of these numbers, especially if you don't have anything to do with business administration. I know that Vlad probably has no problems there because he also has a background there. But what about you guys? How do you learn something about working with business administration, or how to just work reasonable with your money that you got?
We're super lucky to have a good team around us. So the relationship with the angel investors and with the institutional investors that we have is bidirectional. Like I said, it's important for you to like kind of surround yourself with the right people. Whenever we encounter something that's maybe challenging or new to us, despite our own research, like there's a lot of publicly available articles and literature and just resources to guide you in your journey as an entrepreneur, but you don't want to trial and error everything because you don't have that luxury. So we're lucky to be surrounded with people that have been in the company building area for over 20 years or more, and I've kind of figured out a few of the most efficient ways to go about things, and you can learn from that experience. You can leverage it early on.
Maybe also Vlad has some insights on that, because I mean, he has a broader background. Are there anything that we would say is important to learn from the get-go, or some tips that you would give as someone that has a background there?
Yes, so I think that it's very important to try and surround yourself with the right type of advisors early on. It can help a lot, but finding the right. So I want to. One piece of advice is that I believe a startup company needs to differentiate clearly between advisors and directors of the board. So it is a lot of the time there's not a clear understanding for what the roles are for directors and advisors, and people think, oh, I'm going to get this person because has so much experience as the director of the board. There are two very different roles. So the directors of the board have a decision-making role, and the advisors advise with actual without making decisions. So that's very important. If I would recommend for every startup CEO, founder, to understand this distinction and surround themselves with advisors, not in a decision-making capacity, but in an advising-only making capacity. And then you can get the most of their feedback without giving away decision-making power. So it is. So this is something I discovered very early in the game, and I'm grateful I did, because it is this distinction. Others who cannot make it early, they end up with a very short tenure as the CEO of their own company.
Thank you. Maybe we can get back to a little bit more about your research in your company. So as I heard, it's most of the time extremely time consuming to set up a very good R&D team. Do you have any tips about that? How you can build that, how you choose who you're going to set in your R&D team, or how to build the whole R&D atmosphere?
Well, it depends a lot on location. It's even more dependent on location than fundraising, right? Like in terms of fundraising, you can't get a San Francisco VC to invest. But if you're in New York, it's sometimes hard to work with, like someone from the Buck Institute of Aging or some other far off location, right? So in terms of setting up the R&D team, that's sometimes the first thing they have to do even before they fundraise. Like you have to figure out if the place you're at will allow you to hire the sort of staff that you need for the team. Maybe you don't have the salaries right now, or maybe you don't have an employee stock option program or whatever set up. But way before all of these things, before fundraising, because setting up the company and so on, you have to figure out if there even is talent around you. So for context around that, there's very few biotech startups directly within Romania, and that's not for a lack of maybe biology or medical school graduates, but rather because very few people would think about risky sort of startup-y things to sort of pursue it. And you have this sort of culture where a lot of people want to go into big labs, into state institutions and so on. Whereas if your startup is actually located in San Francisco, you'd be hard pressed not to find amazing talent that would join if you have the right idea and the funding for it and so on. So it does feel like it may feel unfair, but the location matters a lot. And if that's an issue, then maybe you want a narrow team, but at least you have to figure out way in advance what sort of CROs or CDMOs or sort of collaborating agencies and companies and so on and contractors you'd like to use, so that you don't have to buy everything and work on everything yourself. And lots of companies do this, like even big pharma. Like if you think about Ozempic, right? Like Ozempic's not 100% produced by Novo Nordisk. It's produced by contractors as well. There's a lot of externalization of labor, but you have to think about those things early on. At least for us, we have a nice mixture of being able to hire Romanian, Oxford, Manchester, Harvard graduates and so on, that we aim to grow our team with, and also a nice environment of CROs around Central and Western Europe. There's quite a bit to talk about there, but I guess I'll limit it to these like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and just to kind of jump on this train of thought for a little bit, if you are listening and you are a talented lab scientist or computational scientist or have experience with clinical trials, do reach us out. So you can find us at office@thecathealth.com. We're growing at an exponential rate right now, and we are interested in hiring more people. We do care about enthusiasm. We do care about being able to express your ideas coherently and why you think are valuable to the team. And we do care about also about your way of approaching learning. So you don't need to know everything, but you need to like kind of be able to let us know that you can figure stuff out and you have the right confidence and the right maybe a track that shows it so far. So any like I've said the beginning of the webinar, like any little project kind of can count towards your experience in a role in a startup, no matter if it's executive or if it's like early in team. Any little project that you've done, but that if you can show you've mastered it and you understand the value of that, and you can make us understand it too, then that's a great starting point. And then yeah, you kind of have to also have some kind of faith in people that you do take on. But we've been lucky so far with people that just go above and beyond what we discuss in meetings and in strategy plans, and just keep surprising us with solutions to some of the problems we encounter. And maybe you don't necessarily have the right one, but then at least you have a couple of options of figuring something out, and you come to someone and you're like, okay, so I'm stuck with this and I'm thinking I should go about it in this way or that way or the other one. Like, what do you advise? So that's super important also, just like try and figure some stuff out first and then reach out for more help and guidance.
Yes, I think it's very valuable to have a great team and also to trust them. So maybe Vlad also has some insights about building his R&D team. I'm very curious about that as well.
So for in larger pharma biotech, it's talent is where talent is. So it is, it's I've been to several companies, and I've seen efforts to try to relocate talent. Every relocation, I was relocated several times, and every relocation is a big major disruption. And in the end, I've just in the last one, I ended up commuting to San Francisco from Chicago, if you can imagine that, for like a year. And once in San Francisco, I would fly out Monday morning and be in San Francisco until Friday afternoon, and then fly back to Chicago for the weekend. And then again, so, on top of this, overlaid with business trips and with internet conferences that I needed to manage. So a lot of travel. And once in San Francisco, guess what? I was on a bat phone with other people elsewhere. So it was not that it was required necessarily for me to be in San Francisco, as all meetings were virtual anyway. So my conclusion about all this is that talent is where talent is. Don't try to relocate them. Try to work with them where they are. And this particularly became exceptionally feasible after the COVID effect. But it's now you could, even if we wanted, so to do it. So our team is a virtual team, and this level is essentially it's about project management at every level more than anything else. So every one of the team is in their own way a project manager, many of them wearing multiple hats. Some of them they've never worn before, entirely new. But the core comes from an existing core a level of expertise that they developed over time, and then they add hats to that. So our research and development team, for instance, we don't have wet labs, and like most companies don't, especially biotech companies that are startups. We use contract organizations for our testing or university labs. It's much more feasible this way. It's you don't need to grow your own mice and run your own tests, and you can do these experiments everywhere in the world. So it doesn't have to be in the United States. It doesn't have to be in Romania. It can be anywhere, and we do them everywhere. So now we're a global company. We have 2 subsidiaries for operational purposes. One is in Australia, the other one is in Romania, and we use them to operate in Australia and Asia, and also in a lot of Eastern Europe and Turkey and other places. Yes, I don't try to relocate talent. If they absolutely want to relocate, that's fine. But usually they don't, because when we hire them, they tend to be at in full swing up in the middle management, making a move towards more senior management roles. And at that point in their lives, they also have families. And when they have families with children go to school, the spouse has a job, they're anchored in the local community, it is a major issue for them to move somewhere. So instead, we work with them where they are. So in the United States, we have people in maybe 8 or 9 different locations, and we have employees and consultants elsewhere as well, including, for instance, Argentina or Canada as well. So we open our gates to talent where talent is, and we will hire good talent even in Argentina and in Canada or in Taiwan or anywhere they are, if that makes sense. And it often does make sense.
Thank you all for the insights also in how you're doing it in your company. I already see that we reached the last 6 minutes already of our webinar. So I just quickly want to check what kind of questions we got in our chat. So let me see. All right. So one question that came in is, what's an example of a great collaboration outcome with another company and what made it work? So do you have any insights on collaborations maybe?
Well, we have multiple collaborations with a lot of clinical research organizations and manufacturing organizations, and big pharma partners as well. So it's in each direction there is a different type of balance of power. So it is obviously when we work with a big pharmaceutical company, we're the junior partner in that relationship. When we work with manufacturing organization, we may be junior in terms of size, but the power shifts in terms of we are the client and we manage the project, we pay the bills. So it's a very different type of relationship. What good looks like is you have to, these are very different types of partnerships, but in the end, it's got to be, you have to select the right people who are eager to do the work, capable, hungry, just like you are looking for your own personnel to hire. Same parameters apply to consulting groups and to and even to big pharma. So our big pharma partners are yes, they're much bigger than us, but they're at the same time, they're very hungry to get in the space, in the specific space of immuno-oncology. And so it's a very different attitude and interest level they bring to the table when compared to other established players. So I would favor the lower cost, local expertise, hungry organization over a big, full-scale global organization that has everything figured out.
Yeah, I was going to hint at something super similar. So what worked for us was when things have moved fast in collaborations. When you're first starting out, it's essential that you move as fast as you can. You can get scooped early. Someone can have the same idea, or someone can have a better idea. So and execute it faster. So you want to make sure that okay, you find the hungry people, and then they also can deliver what they say they will deliver, or if they don't, and the communication isn't super clear, you just identify that early, and you find an alternative. So super clean communication about timelines is important, at least if you know that something is going to take a long time, then you can have an idea rather than just be told, oh yeah, it's going to be done in 2 weeks, and then you're kept in that waiting for some results because the project was of a bigger scale than they originally thought. So people that move fast and you can communicate clearly with usually leads to a good collaboration.
Yeah, and just briefly here, it's always hard to say, what didn't work. So it's hard to like name drop some contractor you really couldn't work with. But sometimes you're lucky. So for example, we've been very happy to work with EpiPause, a Florida-based company. And we have quite a bit of overlap in R&D. And me and Alex have been very happy because we've been like, hey, we want to do this. But then they emailed us back and said, okay, we can do this. And then we had a really hard week and a half or so, where we had to do quite a bit of stuff. And then they pressured us back. And we were like, awesome. Like we would have pressured them back after like 2 weeks and say, like, oh, we needed, a quote for this. Think about where this is feasible, etc. But actually they came back to us and they were like, oh no, we don't need to do stuff faster than this, you guys. And we're like, yeah, that's if you're and sometimes you make your own luck, right? It's like you just contact a lot of contractors, and at some point, because you've contacted a lot of them, you're gonna come across the fast ones. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe also already to build on that, because we got a second question in, and the question was, especially for the cat health company, how difficult is it for you as a small company to, no, the question is gone. Oh, but it was saying something, how difficult is it to get the milestones that are somehow required from you, from bigger companies, for example, always in time ready?
So I guess it's super important, again, to have like good long brainstorming session where you define those milestones and that you're sure that those are exactly what you need to do. If you are superficial about it and you define a milestone, but then during the progress of achieving it, you decide that, oh, I should rather like adjust it slightly, then that can take a lot of time. So thinking time is sometimes undervalued. You need to have time set aside for thinking, aside execution, to make sure that the trajectory that you're going for is optimal and efficient. And then that can kind of help with the delivery.
Yeah, thank you. I think we already reached our time limit. So thank you all very much for giving us some insights into your company. I think it was very interesting to learn more about entrepreneurship, and also entrepreneurship, especially in the life science direction. So thank you very much. I see that we have some small questions left. So maybe if you want to and you have time later, you can just hop into our YouTube account and just look at the questions. If there's something that you can also answer there, would be great. And for all participants in our chat, you are also very welcome to watch our last live stream that is also on our YouTube channel. So I hope to see you next time as well. Bye-bye.